My name is Jim Futrell. I've been NAPHA's historian since 1984, and I've served on the board of directors twice. The National Amusement Park Historical Association, or NAPHA, is an organization that was founded in 1978 by the Shoot the Chutes manager at Riverview Park. He, on a summer evening, decided anybody who wanted to come and share memories of Riverview come to his backyard. I remember hearing stories about how he was selling hot dogs in his backyard. And out of that gathering, a bunch of people said, there really should be a club that promotes the heritage and traditions of the amusement park industry. Over that time, we really have been the only club that has been focused on the entire amusement park. There's a lot of great clubs out there that focus on roller coasters, carousels, dark rides, and haunted attractions, but we focus on the entire amusement park and the history of that industry. Yeah, back in the in the early years of me being an enthusiast, you heard about this park called Paradise Lake that this guy Phil Fry was going to open, and I think the information was sporadic because it was the pre-internet era, and I'd pick up bits and pieces from NAPHA News and Amusement Park Journal about this park that was being built off of I-70. Kind of in the middle of nowhere, southeastern Ohio. They had really big plans for this place. So it was interesting in that they bought the contents of 3 amusement parks. Marco Polo Park in Daytona Beach, Florida, they picked up a sky ride and a big Ferris wheel. Fantasyland in Gettysburg, where they got a number of kiddie rides and other smaller scale rides. And then Playland in Ocean City, Maryland, but those plans fell through. So the park opened in 1981, and I remember really wanting to go here because you heard about these big plans they had. And then in 1982, they added a few more rides. I think they kind of just petered out after that. You heard later that the guy, Phil Fry, well, it was interesting that he moved a lot of the rides down to Texas, where he set them up out somewhere between Waco and Austin. And that park lasted a couple of years too, but he ended up going to jail for tax evasion. And I remember hearing about one of the things that he would do with this park at Paradise Lake was give seminars in how to avoid paying taxes. And one of his top tips was, since you're going to the seminar while you're visiting Paradise Lake, your visit to Paradise Lake is a tax-deductible expense. So it was always, kind of an interesting thing. But, after they closed, they continued on for a couple of years as a campground. So, this is looking from the hillside where the Fantasy Paradise area was down into what was called Space Paradise. And you can see it was largely a big open area that had the monorail from Ocean City, Playland in Ocean City. And there was a bumper boat ride down there, but I think that there was a number of flat rides in there, including Monster Mouse and a space shuttle swinging ship. So by the time I was there in 1985, most of the stuff was gone. So here's a look down. You can see the sky ride that they had that took people from the top of the hill down to Space Paradise at the bottom of the hill. The monorail train was still there. I think this existed there for years after this. You could still drive up I-70 and see the monorail track. That's all gone now. Here was the sign that you used to see off of I-70. The Dairy Queen was part of their operation. That Dairy Queen still exists, I think, is the Lion's Den adult bookstore, and that same sign is still there, although it doesn't give you any indication about what used to be there. This was the old front entrance. You can see the ticket booths and then the gift shop, all attractions must exit through the gift shop kind of thing. So this led to the Western Paradise area, which was on top of the hill. It was actually a pretty nice Western town that they had built. At the time I was there in 1985, it was being used as an amenity area for the campground that existed up there. And they still had one of their miniature train rides, miniature golf course. I believe there was also a paddle boat ride up there too. So it still existed in some form. I was there late in the afternoon, so not a whole lot was going on. Yeah, so here's a look at the boat, paddle boat lagoon up in the campground area. So then here's the Skyride station. So that was the Skyride that took you down the hill from Western Paradise, where I am now, to over Fantasy Paradise down to Space Paradise. So this is the hillside area. This is where the what they called Fantasy Paradise was. This had a lot of the rides and games, or rides and buildings from Fantasyland in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which I believe it closed around 1980. So they essentially bought a lot of the features for the park and set them up here. Another shot of the buildings in the Fantasy Paradise area. Again, they even brought the Fantasyland sign where you stuck your face through and then just covered over the Gettysburg and changed that to Cambridge. At the far end of Fantasy Paradise, they had an Eli Bridge Ferris wheel. And they put it up on top of a concession stand so you would get up above the trees. And it was kind of an interesting feature. Again, one of those things that you could see through the trees driving by on I-70 for many years after the park closed. And an interesting side note, Kennywood actually bought this Ferris wheel along with the larger Wonder Wheel at the auction. Primarily just got this for parts, took the seats and whatever else they needed, left the rest there. But then also the Wonder Wheel they brought to Kennywood, where it existed on the shores of the Kennywood Lagoon up until 1998, I believe, or 99. So one of the things that I got a big kick out of, down in the Space Paradise area, they had a bumper boat ride. But by the time I had gotten there, it had become a swamp filled with cattails. So you can see the cattails. You can see the control building for the bumper boat ride, but not a whole lot else. So here's a look down in the Space Paradise area, looking up the hill. You can see this, get a good perspective of the elevation that the Sky Ride traversed. And then that was where all the Fantasyland attractions were. One of the things I had mentioned earlier is, as they were out looking for other rides to bring in, they did go to Chippewa Lake and buy the old rocket ship ride. Never set it up, but the rockets were sitting there in the weeds. And again, this was one of those things that if you knew where to look driving by on I-70, you could see this little glint of silver poking out of the weeds. It was there for several years. I believe one of these rockets is now property of the Idora Park Experience in Youngstown. So, as I mentioned earlier, the park almost immediately ran into financial problems. And even though they had big plans to expand and turn into this major resort, I don't think they made it through their second season in 1982. I found this was an interesting example of their financial problems. You can see they bought a big Von Roll Sky Ride from Marco Polo Park, and while they were able to put in the foundations and put the towers next to the foundations, never had the money to bring a crane in to set up the towers. The industry is always filled with these fascinating stories of people whose dreams widely exceeded their resources. I think this was a classic example of that. I mean, this is also one of those parks that probably should not have been built. It was in an area where not a lot of people lived. I mean, it was kind of a good location that it was right off of I-70, but the resort they had planned really did not fit the marketplace.